Hello, my name is Blind Beholder and thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'll be showing you how to have your Steam games installed to your SSD instead of your hard disk drive. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I'm going to launch a terminal real quick. Now, majority of this process I will be showing you in the terminal. If you're not comfortable using the terminal, don't worry, I will go through it slowly and I will explain every command and what it does. If you're not sure and you don't want to believe me, then that's what the command does. You can always Google the commands that I'm using just to fact check that they're correct. And I'd recommend doing this whenever you're entering terminal commands with sudo privileges that you're not sure about. Now, I'm not going out my way to make you harm your system, but the same can't be said for everybody out there, and there's never a harm in double checking that everything someone says something is going to do is in fact what that thing is going to do. So without further ado, I'm just going to run an lsblk just to bring up my system partitions so I can go through them with you and explain why we're doing what we're doing. So as you can see, SDA1 is my 1 TB spinning hard drive, and I currently have my home partition mounted to that. Now, ignore this is just my USB thumbstick. However, we also have NVMe 0N1, which is my NVMe SSD, which is 500 gigabytes, give or take a few, and that has my boot partition and root partition mounted to it. So if I go ahead and launch my file manager, you can see this is my home partition. I've got my hidden folders shown for this case because it will be important later on, but just know you can press Ctrl H to show and hide hidden folders. Hidden folders will always start with a dot or a period or a full stop depending on whereabouts in the world you're from. So this is my home partition. This is what I have installed to that 1 TB spinning hard drive. This is my root partition, which I have installed to my NVMe SSD. Now, why would you install your home partition to a spinning disk and not just use an SSD for everything? Or why not have everything installed to the spinning disk? Well, you want your root and boot partitions to be on the SSD for faster boot times, obviously, and so that your Linux applications will launch faster, as majority of your Linux applications that you've installed either through your software manager or the terminal, such as Critter, Blender, Thunai, my file manager even, are all installed in the root file system, which is in this case my SSD, so it means that my applications are going to launch as fast as they can. Your home folder generally is just storage. It's your documents, your downloads, videos, pictures, so on, even .icons, some of these, your config. These are just files that you're storing. You may need these icons, but you're not launching anything. Now the only exception to this is when we come to Steam, because by default in Linux, Steam installs its games to your home folder, which for most people who go for this more optimal partition scheme, uh, for most people, their home folder will be a spinning disk, which will cause longer load times and slower boot times for any of the Steam games. So it's not ideal. It's not. It's not terrible at all. But as you can see, here's my games. But it's not. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. So you might be thinking, well, that's easy. I can just go to my root partition, but root partition is, well, it's owned by root. You don't have, as a user, as a normal user, you don't have read or write privileges in the root partition. So how do we get around that? Well, that's what I'm going to walk you through today. So I'm going to try and go through this slowly, as I said earlier, and just explain every step that I'm doing. So the first thing we're going to do is change our user to have sudo privileges with the su command or su, and it's going to prompt me for a password there. Enter my password, and as you can see, we're now logged in as root. So if we do ls-a, I can see from, because I know my folders, that this is in fact my my home folder. And that's not the folder we want to be in, so we want to change the directory to the file system folder that we're looking at in this screen here with boot, dev, etc, etc in it. So we want a cd, change directory, and a /, as that is the symbol for the root file system. So now if I do an ls-a for list all, we can see we have the directories we can see here are showing here, which is exactly what we want. So the next step is we're going to create a new directory or a new folder to install our games to, which is very simple. The command is mkdir, or which is short for make directory, and I'm going to call this one dash games. You might want to do as I did and call it Steam, or in which case you call it / Steam. So this is saying from the slash directory we want to make one called games, and enter. So now if I refresh on this screen, you can see that we now have this games directory. However, it is still owned by root. So we need to give our user permission to read and write files in this directory. And to do that, we're using the chown command, and that's short for change ownership. I'll put your username. In this case, I'm putting my username, which is Josh. That is my name. A bit too much detail about me there, but oh well. So change ownership to myself. So to change that ownership, I'm going to do chown / R. And what that's going to do is going to change ownership, and the -r is recursive, so it means any folder that I create or is created in this folder will also have the same ownership. Your username, mine is Josh. If you're called Frank, put Frank. If you're called Lily, put Lily. Doesn't matter. Whatever your username is that you log into your system with, put it there. And we're going to do dash games and enter. So now if I refresh, you can see we have permission to create folder, properties, and we have read and write privileges. Now, some people there may be thinking, oh no, that's insecure. You've given user permission to a root file system. Well, not to be that guy, but your actual home folder also extends from here, but it doesn't give you root permissions to these, and it's very much the same case here. So even though I have read and write permission in this games folder, I still don't have read and write permissions in the main root folder, and I still don't have read and write permissions in any of these subsequent file system folders. So don't worry, you haven't given user privileges to your entire root partition. You've just created a new folder extending from your root partition that your user has access to. So the next step is installing your games to your new folder. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Steam. Here we go. So if we go into Steam settings, and I just bear with me a second while I remember exactly where it is. And there we go, Steam library folders. So as you can see, so by default you would have this one, and this is the one that I've created myself. Now if I was to add my new one, I would just go into this little menu. It's not the best menu, to be honest. And as you can see, we're in Dash, and we need to look down there, Dash Games, select, and now Dash Games has been added as a file system. So what you could do is you could get Terraria. This is just an example. Tick that, move, and I want to move that to Drive Dash Games. I'm not going to do that because this is the same drive. I'm going to remove this drive now. But the point stands, you can now add them to that. Same goes if I was to install a new game. Let me just untick that very quickly. Factorio, that's a good example. If I was to install this, it's going to choose location for install, and I can do it under dash home josh.local share steam, which is my spinning drive, or just under dash steam, which is my SSD. And that way, videos will just launch. Your video games will just launch that little bit faster. But that's it for today. Thank you all for watching, and let me know down below if this video helped you at all. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more Linux gaming tips, gameplay, anything like that, this channel is going to be all about Linux gaming. So if you want to see anything else in regards to Linux gaming, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm along, it helps this video get out to people, and it helps me to know if this content was helpful to you. So thank you all for watching. I've been Blind Beholder. Take care.